Hi, good morning, and welcome to the Women in Sport podcast. As an employment lawyer, I've specialised in discrimination and diversity matters for years, and diversity issues in the workplace can sometimes be opaque and quite difficult to spot or move forwards. But in sport, these issues can be very real and obvious, and even if they're not, at the moment there seems to be a lot of people, a lot of individuals who are seeking to drive change and are prepared to call them out, and particularly for women in sport, which is really good to see. We've had some fantastic guests and role models on this podcast, allies and change makers, and one of those is with us today. My name is Emma Bartlett. I'm a partner at C.M. Murray, and this is our brilliant associate, Mitchell Blythe. As I said, we both have a keen interest in sport and law. Good morning, Mitchell.
Good morning.
And I'm really pleased to welcome our brilliant guest today, Shaunagh Brown. Good morning, Shaunagh. How are you?
Good morning, I'm good. The sun is shining. It's time to be alive.
It's time to be alive, thank you. Shaunagh needs no introduction. Former England and Harlequins rugby player who earned 30 caps for the Red Roses, 4 Six Nations titles, including back-to-back Six Nations Grand Slams, and played in 2021 Rugby World Cup Final against New Zealand. As well as this, Shaunagh represented England in the hammer throw at the Glasgow 2014 Commonwealth Games. Mitchell.
Yeah, Shaunagh's lived a lot of different chapters across different careers, with work as a gas engineer, firefighter with Kent Fire Rescue, and as a qualified commercial diver. Off the field, Shaunagh drives change through various avenues, including being a member of the RFU's Rugby Against Racism Working Group, being called to Parliament to give evidence to the Women Equalities Committee on sexism in sport, and was named one of the Evening Standard's most influential Londoners and shortlisted for Sunday Times Sportswoman of the Year, Influencer of the Year award. The big question to start off with for us at the moment is, how did you feel following the Red Roses win in the World Cup at Twickenham? And I understand you were at the stadium, so what was the atmosphere like at the final whistle?
Yeah, so like you said, I was at Allianz Stadium along with 1,884 other people. It was unreal. It was such a positive, happy place, and there's just something different when you go and watch women's rugby, and in terms of the feeling, and men's rugby is perfectly pleasant, but you just know when you're at a women's game that you just the vibe is a lot different. But yeah, to watch them win, it also felt right. Like, it didn't feel like, oh, this is a one-off and then we'll go back to not many people watching. It felt like this is the start of the next movement, not just the moment. So yeah, it was an honor to be there, to be amongst it, and to witness it firsthand that it can be done, and we have to keep pushing to make sure it's done again for the next World Cup and all of the PWR games for us here in England in between.
Absolutely, yeah. And from watching the Red Roses performance at Allianz Stadium, to take it back to the beginning for you and almost full circle as well, your first international cap was against Canada in 2017, I believe, after you started rugby in 2015. Can you talk to us a little bit about the emotions in winning your first cap and how that feels?
Loads of people ask me this, and I always feel like it's quite a disappointing answer, because for me, running out for England was just what I planned to do. Like, it was on my to-do list, and so I did it. And as much, as of course you have pride and I don't know, all of the fancy words that people use. Like, in my mind, told myself I was going to play rugby for England one day, and so I put everything in place to make that happen, like including all of the sacrifice and all of the not so fun stuff that goes with it. And so when I did run out against Canada for that first cap, it was just kind of, okay, cool. Like, I've done it now. Like, what's next? And my next was playing in a World Cup, to be honest, and so that happened too. So again, it was just like tick on the to-do list. But then the other part of it was, it wasn't my first time representing our country, and so again, it's just something else I've done. Like, you guys do law and you write lots and read lots, which I find incredibly difficult to do. And I think you're amazing at what you do. And it's just that the path that I've chosen seems to have a bit more of stardust on its spotlight or cherry on the cake. But I just see it like it's just my chosen path. And you guys do your path, everybody does their own path. And mine just happens to be representing our country on a global stage. But honestly, just a to-do list.
That's a that's a really interesting attitude to have to. And one thing as well that really sticks out to me with your rugby career, and perhaps also will come as a bit of a shock to people listening, given the accolades that we just introduced you with, is that you didn't actually start playing rugby until around your mid-20s. So how were you introduced to the sport initially?
So back in sixth form college, I was doing A-level PE, and we had a taster session with a rugby coach. So I'd heard of it before, but that was about it. And I knew it was a funny shaped ball, but we had probably like only half an hour with this coach, and we was just hitting each other for half an hour. And I was like, whoa, this is great. Like we was wrestling, jumping each other's backs, fighting to the floor. And I was just like, what is this an actual sport? He's like, yeah, well, kind of. It's rugby, and this is just elements of it. So I had a great 20 minutes, and but at the time I was doing athletics, and so I couldn't and didn't want to do rugby because I was already really deep at an international level at another sport. And it was only once I finished with athletics, like you said, I went to Commonwealth Games in 2014, and so 2015 it was time to start a new challenge. And it was just like, oh, I remember how that rugby thing made me feel. So just got in contact with my local club, Medway Rugby Club, and just said, can I come and have a go? And he said, yep. And here we are a few years later.
And how was that transition from obviously the athletic side to the rugby side? Did it come quite naturally to you?
Some elements did. The two biggest differences was culturally. So I'd come from, I was born and raised in South London, moved out to Kent, and so I'd come from a place where everything and everyone is very colourful. Everyone's very different. It's all celebrated. Like in my primary school, all of our house names were after lots of historical characters, black and white, men and women. And so I just that was my normal, like to celebrate people and celebrate who they are and the differences. And that happens in athletics because of the nature of the sport. There's so many different elements of it, different walks of life, different sports within a sport, etc. I came over to rugby, and like everyone was white, and I didn't think much of it. It's just particularly now looking back, I'm like, oh, that's why. Like I was different, and I still am pretty different in most metaphorical rooms that I'm in. And so it was a bit of a shock in terms of, the music that we listened to in the changing rooms, the food that was served after a game, even speaking of like, TV program, just cultural references that people didn't get, or I would hear them speak and I'm like, never watched that film, don't know who that artist is, or like songs. And I was just like, oh, okay, like this is different. This is not what I'm used to. So that was difficult in the beginning. And then the other side of it was working as a team. So I'd come from a sport where it was all about me, and whether if I had a bad day, then I wouldn't throw very far, and if I have a good day, I would throw far. And it was about me, and I had to pick myself up when I was down, or I congratulated myself when I would win, or whatever it was. And then coming across to a team, all of a sudden I've got to think about like 20 plus people really, because obviously the team's 15, but it's always bigger than the 15 who were on pitch at the time. And so yeah, it was genuinely one of the more difficult parts of the transition is thinking of other people. And I guess a lot of people wouldn't say that out loud because it seems selfish, but that's my truth. So yeah, but then the flip side of it was that when I was playing as a team, I then had on the pitch, I had 14 other people to either help me or to pick me up when I was down. And the reminder that, I could have had a great game, I could have slept well, got all my nutrition right, make sure I knew the game plan inside out. But if 14 other of my teammates didn't, like it didn't matter. So for me to achieve, I had to be invested in others and think of others constantly. And it's for sure it's helped change my perspective on life as well. But yeah, that's a couple of the really big transition moments.
It's interesting you mentioned the cultural transition as well, because it's been clear to us, obviously, that your career has went from strength to strength after that, and you had a very illustrious rugby career. But I saw an article in the Telegraph, and the headline was a quote from you where it said, "If being mixed race, female, and having my hair cut makes girls want to have a go at rugby, then job done." And I think that highlights how important visibility is to the next generation of athletes. And can you just talk a little bit or explain a little bit why visibility is so important?
Yeah, it's just that, like it's seeing someone, hearing someone that you relate to, and we've all got it, whether you think you are like I hate the phrase, what is it, pale, male, and all those things that you're the average person, which is, 6 foot white, straight man, no matter who you are, there are things that you will hear or see that make you think, oh, like that place is for me, that sport is for me, that job, that career is for me, because you see and hear things, whether consciously or subconsciously, that makes you gravitate towards certain things, but also certain people. If you look in a room of strangers that you do all sorts of experiments, you'll notice that the people who look like each other gravitate towards each other, even if nobody knows each other. So it's understanding that that's the completely natural human behavior. So let's embrace it. And if you are mixed race and you haven't seen someone play rugby who looks like you before, why would you think rugby is for you? If you haven't heard someone with a certain type of accent, why would you think that? Or you hear every time I hear like Afro beats played at Allianz Stadium, I'm like, oh, like, and I'm rugby, like I'm there all the time, but yeah, you don't normally hear that kind of music at that kind of place. And so it's just so powerful, and getting other people to realize that, like, let's be different if we want to attract. And rugby works so hard to attract different types of people, not just playing, but spectating, fans, coaching, refereeing, like volunteers across the board. It genuinely works so hard. So let's do things differently, because what we've been doing for the last hundreds of years, like, has worked to a point, but now we need to push on and go further. And like, some people sort of drew me out for that headline as if to say I was happy with being selected, say, for a team entirely because I was mixed race, or entirely because I had my afro hair out. And that's absolutely not what it was. I know that I work very hard behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, whatever it is. And I always deserve to be where I am because I've worked for it. And again, a team effort around me. It's never just me. Everyone in my life helps me to get to a place. And so when I am there, I've earned it. I deserve it. There's no box ticking, which often get accused of, like female and mixed race. You're like double box ticker. All you need to do now is be disabled and gay. Like, it's like people joking about these things as if that's every day. And I would always come back to them and say, no, no, like, I'm here because I deserve to be here. I'm good enough to be here. And actually, I'm probably better than you because you're insecure enough to bring that up. Then you probably know, are you supposed to be here? And so, yeah, I'm okay as long as I am good enough in whichever field it is. I'm okay with them being selected to be put on a pedestal with whatever lens, because of how I look and how I sound, because we know that's what's going to attract different people towards us and our game for the future.
I'm so grateful to be talking to you, particularly in October, given it's Black History Month, and you've just taken us through such a really important part of Black History Month as well, raising awareness and celebrating differences. So thank you for that. I mean, that's obviously wasn't the focus of this chat today, but thank you, Shaunagh. I wanted to talk to you about it's quite a privilege to be asked to contribute towards a parliamentary committee, and you gave evidence to the Women Equalities Committee on sexism in sport on a couple of issues, but I wanted to talk to you about one of the questions you answered was what action you consider necessary to tackle sexism and misogyny in sport, and just wondered if you could talk about that.
I am passionate about having just a school uniform, as in there's no, this is what boys wear, this is what girls wear. If you have a school uniform, like, I'm okay with not having a school uniform, but if you have a school uniform, fine. Let's just make it an active uniform. So it is, you don't have to, if you're a girl and you're wearing a skirt or dress to school, well, number one, let's not force girls to wear skirts or dresses to school. If they want to wear trousers, then fine. And you can open up skirts and dresses to boys as well. Maybe a whole different conversation, but let's just have a uniform that your students can wear. Because if you force girls to wear a skirt or dress, all of a sudden activity becomes a chore, it becomes an extra. It means you have to go and get changed to go and do PE. And actually, PE can be done every break time, every lunchtime, when you're just running around playing with your mates. And if you put the barrier of a skirt or like, who goes to the gym in a skirt or dress? And then there are some sports who still insist that their athletes wear skirts or dresses. Again, a different conversation, but it's that piece around, in our schools, let's just allow children to play, to move around and do things. You don't have to be organized sport. You don't have to have a teacher and rules and a whistle and winners and losers. Let's just encourage movement. And I remember when I was at school, I played on the monkey bars, hung upside down. I had a skirt on, my knickers were on show, everyone laughed at me. So I went home that day and said to my mum, I'm never wearing a skirt or dress again. And I was lucky enough to have a mum at home who said, okay. And there was no argument, there was no, this is what girls do, this is, you need to look pretty. Not, she just said, okay. And I was never forced to wear a skirt or dress again. So let's just make it normal. And even the with trousers, like you don't have to, why do you have to have the suit type trousers that you can't run around in? Like just have a smart, you can have a smart jogger, you can have, there are options. And why are we forcing 8 and 9 year olds to look smart, like to prepare for the job market, like in over 10 years' time? Come on. We just want children to move around and play. And the same people who would complain about kids are always on their mobile phones, kids are always in the house playing games, they're the same ones who will moan that they're not wearing a suit and tie primary school, to primary school. And then the second piece around language is it's so important and so powerful. I think we forget that. So every time we say policeman, fireman, every time we assume when your parents have been to the doctor that it's a he or him, or every time parents see a nurse, it's a she, hairdresser's a she, you're telling the opposite gender that they can't do that. And if I'm a girl growing up and all I hear is policeman, 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 I subconsciously think, that's, I know I'm not a man and I'm not going to grow up into be a man, so I can't do that. And if we are constantly telling people from birth that that's not for them, then why would they see it as for them? And that goes back to our early conversation. Until you see, hear as something that reflects you in them, whatever them is, then why would you even think about doing that for you? And if there's sort of the gender pieces, then there's the like when you say, "Oh, I'm just this. I'm just a hairdresser. I'm just a sports lawyer." Like there's no just about anything that we do. All of our contributions to humanity have the ability to be equal. It's how you apply it and how you apply yourself. And people who talk themselves down including like a lot of women, how often we talk ourselves out of something. And the old classic of, you read a job description and if women don't meet 9 out of the 10, they're not going to apply, but yet a man will meet 1 or 2 and he will apply. So it's just constantly reminding ourselves that we are good enough. As and not just adults to children, but people across the board, if we take a moment to think about the language that we're using and the effects that it has, then we can move forward. And as soon as a baby is born, we're all obsessed with knowing, is it a boy or girl? And I always think, why do you need to know that? Is it because you're going to buy pink things and hoovers for the girls, or dinosaurs and blue things for the boys? I just buy toys, just buy clothes. And so how we speak as well, like tone. So if we see a little girl, we'll always go very high and talk about how pretty she is and how lovely her hair looks and how amazing her outfit is. And we see a boy and we talk about how big and strong he looks. So all of these things that we're constantly doing, which is not malicious, it's just, our culture, society, human nature. But we need to change that. We need to think about that and change it, because eventually it will help us as adults as well.
I wanted to sort of close out the end of this podcast by looking ahead to the future of the women's game, obviously. Um, and I thought I would just mention 2 people from the World Cup who I thought were sort of standout superstars. And I would like you also maybe to talk about anyone who you think deserves a shout out as well. I think it's hard to narrow it down to just 2 people that I picked, obviously, because I think
Can I
everyone
take a
in that.
guess at which 2 you're going to choose?
I'd love you to, yeah. Go ahead.
Meg Jones, Ellie Kildan?
You got one right.
Which one?
Eddie Kildan.
Sadia Kabeya is your second one?
No, my second.
Okay, all
So
right. I'll stop
Eddie
saying that.
Kildan was my first one, who I just thought was just absolutely incredible on the pitch as a player, and in the interviews as well afterwards. She was great. The second one is Hannah Bottoman, who I
Uh,
think was just a fantastic player on the pitch, but also the personality and character that came through from her as well around the World Cup, I thought was really important as well. And I think that was what made her sort of the second standout, just because it was really great to see how much fun she was having and and playing this big character in the team. So I'd like to see if you had anyone else you thought, other than obviously everyone that was in the team.
Yeah, well, I'll give you the two that weren't that I already
Yeah,
guessed. That's
okay.
Meg Jones and Sadia Kabeya, and for similar reasons, because they're incredible players on pitch, but off pitch they are so much of themselves, and it's very important to for people to see that you see them on pitch as a player, and yes, they're phenomenal, but people now we want to get to know people and human beings, and so for them to open themselves up in a way where they could be vulnerable with certain things because they are very different characters and they're unique and very happy to be themselves out loud, which can be so incredibly brave. And Meg speaks about so many issues and of mental health and things that some people would be scared to speak about, but then and also she's on the pitch smashing it up like every week. So it's just reminding people that you can do both. There is a capacity, if it works for you, that you can do both. And then my second one, I'd say Saudi Kabeya for similar reasons. Like sometimes I would be with her in camp and I'm like, I'm just so proud of you, Sadia. You're fully yourself like all of the time. And it can be hard work being yourself amongst a group of people. But she's very happy to be herself in an environment that you might not often see, a person of color in. And I guess that's part of the other reason as well for her to almost have the weight of all people of ethnic minorities on a rugby pitch, like representing England, and for her to go out and literally smash people. That's what she does. She was the highest tackler across the whole World Cup. She's the only person to reach over 100 tackles. So she's literally smashing people every week, but she's smashing them metaphorically as well, and making sure that people know her name, what she can do, but also her story in that she didn't come from a rugby background or rugby school. She's not from a rugby family. She got given a chance where she was at a school, Paris Academy in Crystal Palace, that had a teacher who did rugby. And so, yeah, her journey is very different to most rugby players. And her getting player of the match in the World Cup final was poetic justice. So yeah, they're my two.
And it's such a time as well where rugby is looking for superstars and characters like across all of rugby as well, the men's game as well. They've made so many movements to try and shine these personalities through, like putting the names on the back of the shirts and things. So it's really great that after the Red Roses World Cup or the World Cup in general, that we're struggling to name. We're not struggling, sorry, we're trying to narrow down just to two superstars as opposed to just listing the whole team,
Yeah.
which is really positive to see. So that was really interesting to hear from you. Thank you, Shaunagh. And I've also just wanted to finish by saying that if you do want to hear more from Shaunagh, I'd recommend going over to the For Love of Rugby podcast, which is the podcast that was initially started by Dan Cole and Ben Youngs from England and Leicester. But Shaunagh's now a regular host and presenter over there. And it's really great and really interesting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shaunagh. Your insights this morning are really powerful, and it's a fantastic start to our day as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem.
Thank you.